Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Welcome to the Ear Mob Podcast. I am your host, Chaz Stumbo. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ear Mob Podcast. This one is going to be a lot of fun. I guarantee it. I know many of you out there are, you used to dabble in role-playing games and you don't want to admit it now, but you know what? You should, because it's part of growing up. It's part of being an adult, and it's part of being and just having a good time. So I wanted to let you know that today's guest is going to be a good one. This particular gentleman here, today I have Miguel Ribeiro, known to many as the Mad Hermit. He is the creator and the driving force behind the Red Room, an indie tabletop RPG publisher specializing in the Wretched role-playing game system and its expansive Wretchedverse. With a background as a former tabloid journalist, back when the term still meant digging for stories rather than pushing agendas, Miguel's path took a sharp turn during the lockdowns of the early 2020s. Housebound and restless, he dove headfirst into the tabletop RPG scene. What he saw as the increasing sanitization and pussification of the hobby, mandatory safety tools, heavy content warnings, and the softening of the classic gritty tropes. The resistance didn't go quietly, though. His unapologetic old-school approach, embracing anti-heroes, permanent character death, classic fantasy races as archetypes, including the potentially evil ones, and zero compromise on modern sensitivities led to his work being banned from drive-thru RPG after repeated flags for offensive content. Ostracized from mainstream RPG circles, Miguel now embraces the hermit life, writing, publishing, and selling his books directly through more to. I'm going to screw that up, so I'm going to leave that for him to pronounce because I will screw it up, I promise. And platforms like Lulu, under the Wretched banner, he often collaborating with Silvia Clemente has built a versatile OSR inspired system for grim player driven anti hero adventures across genres, including survivor horror, in dying spaceships, spaghetti western grit, investigative gothic horror, space opera, post apocalyptic wastelands, and dark fantasy betrayal, and many, many more. The line includes zines, supplements, character generators, and crossovers, all delivered with raw, politically incorrect energy and a refusal to bow to prevailing trends. Miguel joins us today to talk about fighting for unfiltered gaming, the thrill and pitfalls of going rogue in the hobby, the evolution of the wretched verse, and why some stories are better when they're allowed to be truly wretched. So, everybody, do me a favor and please welcome, as soon as I click this button, welcome Miguel Ribeiro to the Ear Mob podcast. Sir, how you doing today?
Hello, good morning or afternoon in my case.
Yes, it is afternoon for you. We are 8 hours apart. So, what I
Okay.
love about doing podcasts and the technology that we have available today is it allows us to break the miles down between us. I mean, the world becomes such a much smaller place, and we can discuss these things and get perspectives from people of how the hobby is all over the world. So, I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I stopped for a long, long time. And then, just like yourself, when COVID hit, I dived back into it because I could do something and play with my friends online, and we didn't have to be in the same room, and we could enjoy the hobby. And I dived back into it, and I've been running games since I got back into it. So, um, you started. Am I correct? You started when COVID hit. Is that when you got into it, or did you grow up playing?
No, actually, I've been playing role playing games for much longer than that. I started in the late '80s. What
Okay.
I started during COVID was to publish my own work because I had never done it before. So at that time, I interrupted my usual in-person games, and because at the time I wasn't yet playing online. Um, and I decided because I didn't have an in-person group, maybe it would be a good idea to pick up the stuff that I had written long before and started to translate it to English and publish it.
Okay. So when you what did you play Dungeons and Dragons, or were there other systems that you played?
I started with Dungeons and Dragons. I am not a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, but that's how I started.
Okay. So let's talk about your system and the system that you created. And obviously, you just mentioned that you're not a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, and that leads you into writing your own system. So, what was it about Dungeons and Dragons that you don't like that made you decide that you were going to write a grittier and more, should I use the word hardcore system?
Yeah, yeah. Why not?
Okay, so
It's not really about the system. Actually, we are OSR, so we use rules that were before, not the current D&D rules, but the original ones. So it's not really the system that is a problem. The problem with most role playing games is they usually tend to be either fantasy, space opera, the popular ones at least. I prefer other styles, other genres.
right.
Even as a player, I did play D&D for some time, but then I quickly moved on to other stuff. I started with Call of Cthulhu, which
Mm.
is also popular, but at the time it was when I found, well, okay, fantasy is not my thing. It would never be my thing, but Call of Cthulhu was, of course.
Okay. Well, I know of that game. I've never played that gaming system. I started out back in the early '80s with people call it the Beck Me version of
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons, and I started out with that with my buddies, and we all had the red box and the expert, the blue box, and so on and so forth. And a couple of my friends played past that, and they got into Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and then they got into second edition and third edition, and now they've moved into Pathfinder. And I got back into the fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons, and then last year when they came out with I guess you could call it 5.5 or whatever you want to call it, with the 2024 rule updates, and I started running a couple of games with the 2024 rules, and I almost felt like the characters were overpowered over the monsters, and it just didn't seem as gritty as I wanted it to be. It didn't make sense, and it still doesn't make sense that you can sit there as a character and take all of this damage, and then your cleric walks up and go bing, and all of a sudden you're good to go again. Or you say, you've got your third level character and you have 30 hit points, whatever. You go down to 5 hit points, you just sleep for 8 hours, and all the wounds are healed, and you're back to full strength. And that I get it, but it doesn't make much sense to me.
No.
And so I've implemented some homebrew rules in my current game to kind of take some of that puffiness away from it, some of that stuff that makes it a little easier, take that away. And I'm guessing, and with your game system, I mentioned the word hardcore. So describe how you designed your game system, what possessed you to come up with it, and how someone would want to play your gaming system if they're into things being a little different.
Okay, so when we started with something called Wretched, which is the first system. We have two lines now. One is Wretched. I haven't got that one here, but I have the other one. The other one is this one, Red,
Okay.
named after the Red Room. Wretched is truly OSR, so you have classes and you have character levels, all that. Though you cannot grow your character into a very powerful character. It stops at level 14, so it's kind of a low level style of game, because it wasn't meant to be played with high fantasy settings. We do have a fantasy setting. It's called Wretched Bastards, but it's low fantasy, low magic, and obviously much more lethal than any of the current versions of D&D. So that was the first thing that we done. We started with even though we don't like fantasy, we started with fantasy because it's what most people like. So it's, from a commercial point of view, we decided that it would be better to start with. And so Wretched Bastards was our first game. And the concept behind it is to play anti-hero characters in a low fantasy setting. There's a game that I never played, but I like the concept of it. And even though I never read it, I never played it, I just knew about the concept. It's an Italian role playing game, but it's in English, published in English. It's a setting for fifth edition. It's called Bracalonia, which is a crossover between fantasy and spaghetti westerns, or spaghetti westerns in general. So it's kind of a grittier version of fantasy.
Okay.
And I like the concept, and I decided, okay, this is something I want to do. I'm a big fan of spaghetti westerns and Italian movies in general. So in this case, in this game, in Wretched Bastards, you play low-level characters that are not really heroes in the fantasy style. They are anti-heroes. They are they are adventuring for profit, maybe for fame, not really to save damsels in distress or whatever. Of course, those things can happen, and because that was the way we started, we decided that we should have a different kind of alignment, an alignment alternative to all those chaotic and neutral and lawful and evil. So we decided we should have something different to mark the difference. So our alignment system is called sins and virtues. So you pick, depending on the style of character and the style of game you're playing, you either pick one sin, which is your major sin, and it gives you advantages and disadvantages, or you pick a virtue if you really want to play a good guy, or you pick one sin and one virtue and you play a normal person, basically. Not truly a hero, not truly a villain.
Right. So you just mentioned you can play just a normal person. So there, you don't necessarily have to go, okay, I'm going to be a warlock or a wizard. You said it's low. You don't really care for fantasy as much as the other. So it would be like, I guess, I just want to play a blacksmith. I don't want to play a gunslinger, or I just want to play a barkeep in a saloon, as far as
Yeah,
like the spaghetti westerns.
possibility in Ratchet. Um, Even more in Red, because Red was developed later, and it's we don't have a fantasy game for this one. We have a swords and sorcery, but no, not a fantasy game for this one. So during some time we published Ratchet is a main core book, just with rules, and then a bunch of settings. So we have Wretched Bastards, which is the fantasy setting. We have Wretched Country, which is a Western setting. We have Wretched Apocalypse, which is a post-apocalyptic setting. We have Wretched Space, which is a space adventure setting. We have a bunch of other things. I'm not going to mention them all. Um, Red is a little bit different. We do have a core book, but the other games are actual games. Every book includes the rules and the setting. In Ratchet, we decided to do in separate, but I think it's probably better to have a shorter uh, rules part and then the setting included in the same book.
Okay. So you decided to create this game system in these different settings. So, what goes into creating a setting? Like, I know there's planning involved and everything like that, but what inspired you for the different settings? You mentioned the Italian movies and the spaghetti westerns, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, with
Yep.
Clint Eastwood back in the day. So, did those movies inspire you to create that setting?
Everything is almost everything is inspired by movies. Our Ratchet verse and our multiverse, we can call it whatever we want, is very cinematic. So every game, every setting has some kind of some style of inspiration from movies, either westerns or action movies or war movies, whatever it is. All of them have some kind of inspiration from the movies.
Okay. So, you and in your bio and on the website it mentions that your product was banned or taken off of drive through RPG. And for anyone who's into the role playing game hobby, drive through RPG is where everyone kind of goes. You can buy everything from every. It's not just Dungeons and Dragons. There's, like you mentioned, Call of Cthulhu, and there's Pathfinder, and there's Shadow Dark, and Dragonheart. I mean, everything's on Drive Through RPG. You can get PDFs of older, um, I would say, modules. D&D modules, older books, and everything. So, what happened that made them, I don't want to use the word ban because that may be a strong word, but why isn't your content available on there? What is it about your content and your gaming system that they didn't like?
Okay, so when we started there, of course, because It's very important. Drive-through is almost a monopoly in terms of digital content, especially for small publishers. Of course, Hasbro doesn't need drive-through. If they didn't sell there, they would still sell their D&D games. So for the
Right.
mainstream companies, it's not really important. It's just another venue. But for every other publisher, it's very very important. So we started there. But very quickly we started having issues because there's an option to report titles for whatever you want. If you purchase it, you can report it if you found it offensive or if you found something else that was problematic. So we started having some complaints. I don't think they were actually about the content of the game. They were probably. We have a YouTube channel, just to give some context to this. We have a YouTube channel, and even before we started publishing games, we interviewed people there. So other content creators, game designers, and most of the guys we interviewed are conservatives, and some of them have some kind of big legion of enemies, also fans, but in this case, enemies. And because of that, we were already marked as bad people. So I think that was the main reason. So they started reporting this, and we then published the game that is not our game. It's from someone else. A game called Man, which is a joke basically. It's a satirical game about. It's a fantasy game, kind of, in a weird setting where players are all men, manly men, and the bad guys are feminazis and other kinds of tropes. And of course, the first day that that game was published, it was immediately removed for review because that's what they do. If someone reports a game as whatever, as some problem, their publisher relations team has to remove the game and do some reviews. Well,
Right.
of course, that is pretty bad because games usually sell much better during the first days. That's when
Right.
they are more visible in the site. So if they remove you from the site the first day or the first 2 days, it's kind of tough for the
Right.
publisher, and it happened several times. Um, and this last time we did a video about it on YouTube and we complained about it. And that's what got us banned because DriveThru had introduced a policy called hostile marketing. So you cannot complain about their decisions or you run the risk of being banned from there. That's what happened. So it wasn't actually political, at least the official reason. But well, you know.
Well, okay. So then I'm going to give you my view on that, and you don't have to say I know exactly what happened, right? So I'm going to give you my view on that as far as how the world goes, how the world looks through my eyes. So Dungeons and Dragons or role playing games in general are meant you're meant to dive into that universe. You're meant it's an escape from your the daily grind of life. It's just like if you were to sit down and play Call of Duty or anything on the PlayStation 5 or Xbox or whatever you're into, right? So with Dungeons and Dragons or these role playing games, it's an escape. You're meant to just be with people and have fun. And that's what it's all about, to have fun. And when these other things from the outside world start to affect your ability to do that, and you take it that seriously where you get offended when somebody else doesn't believe the same thing that you believe, or somebody's writing a game that's satire and you get offended by it, then all of a sudden it's everybody's problem and it becomes somebody's mission to make sure that that goes away. It's just like when everybody was being canceled for saying certain things, or wearing a red hat. It your issues that you would have as a person, you're projecting onto somebody else. It's basically, if you don't care for a particular game for certain reasons, then just don't play the game. Don't complain and take the ability away from somebody else to play that game. And when I run games, it doesn't matter to me what you identify as, or your sexual orientation, or whatever. That doesn't matter to me. I just want to play the game and have fun. I don't care. Just as long as you don't make it an issue, where it becomes a big thing where it's no longer fun to play the game because of the issue. That's when I have a problem. But that's how it should be. It should never be an issue. Everybody should be having fun. And unfortunately, people project their issues onto other people and make it really difficult. And I apologize that happened to you, because it shouldn't have happened to you. It should have just been like, hey, it wasn't my game. There's another game out there. I'm going to move on and play that game. And now I think everybody should play your game. Everybody should dive into it and find out what it's all about, just for the simple fact that it's real, in a sense that it's grittier. And you put your blood, sweat, and tears into this to design this with your friends, and put it out. It's not cheap to publish games by any stretch of the means. You put it out there, and it's just, I don't like the fact that somebody decided, hey, I don't like it, so I'm going to make sure that nobody gets to enjoy it. And I apologize that you have to go through that. And it stinks that our drive-through RPG caved in that. And I understand it to an extent, but I don't like the fact that they caved. It should just be like, hey, this game's a little more grittier. This isn't your Dungeons and Dragons. This is more old school, grittier. So if you like grittier games and you like a more hardcore experience and more options, then this game is for you. If you want fluff, fantasy, and sorcery, then this game system is not for you. So beyond drive-through RPG and me ranting for the last 5 minutes, my apologies. Moving past drive-through RPG, what was the next step once your system was pulled down off of there?
The first thing we did was to open our own store for digital titles. It's not a store anymore because there are some issues with the taxes and all that. So
Sure.
So what we did was, we also sell at Lulu, which is a company that mostly does print-on-demand titles, but they also sell digital titles as well. Later, we started selling at itch.io as well, and now we are selling through Amazon, only printed titles, no digital. But so we are at 3 places right now.
Okay, I like and it's basically print on demand. So
Yeah, always print on.
You provide them with a file, and then when somebody orders it, they print it. And
Yeah.
I like how Amazon does that, because it doesn't force you to spend a lot of capital to print 500 copies of something. It's just like, hey, we sold 3 copies, they printed them out, and the customer had them within 2 days of it being printed, or the same day that's being printed, and it's a faster turnaround, and you're not sitting there on a bunch of inventory. So I like how they do that.
We live in Portugal, and most of the customers are living in the US, so the shipping costs would be
Sure.
awful. So it's better because if you buy from Amazon or Lulu, the book ships from the US, of course.
Right.
Maybe from your state, I don't know. It depends. They have printers all over the world, so it's much cheaper even for the person buying, because your shipping costs will be from your own country, not from across the world.
Right. Right. I know from personal experience ordering a book on Amazon, and I get it, 2 days later, and inside the front cover, right inside, it says printed in San Bernardino, California on such and such date, which was generally the day before I received the book from Amazon. And it appears to be, great quality. I mean, they're not
Yeah.
cheap when they print out the books. It's great
No,
quality.
also they have different printing qualities.
Right.
Uh, the best one is a little bit expensive, so I usually don't use that one. I use the intermediate, but it's good enough for a role playing game,
Right.
especially if it's a black and white book. It's cool, no problems with that.
So the physical copies of your books, you've got the core rules, and how do some of the rules, how are they different from what people would expect from let's use D&D because it's the most popular one, right?
Yeah.
And you described it as a little more hardcore. How is your system hardcore in the sense, like some of the rules? Break that down for me.
Okay, so being OSR means that the rules are compatible with any other OSR game, and they are compatible with earlier editions of D&D, so up to third edition. So it's compatible with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons second edition. From then on, it's different. So you have the not exactly the same attributes because we renamed them, but you have attributes and they are the same amount, the same number of attributes,
Right.
and you have hit points, which are not called hit points, but it's the same thing. So it works the same way. You roll the same dice. It's a D20 based game, or in this case, games, because it's both Ratchet and Red. They use the same approach. So that means that if you ever played D&D up to third edition, you will learn it very quickly because it's basically the same thing. If you play fifth edition, you'll probably recognize the rules anyway.
Okay.
Of course, there are differences, but the the main the structure is more or less the same. So you have classes. We named it something else. We named them archetypes, but they are classes anyway. The classes have certain kind of characteristics that are specific to each class. The hit points work exactly the same way. When you roll a skill or an attack roll is exactly the same way. You roll 1d20 and you add the attribute modifier and you add the skill if you have it and you add some other modifiers if they are available at the time. So it's basically the same thing as in any other OSR game.
So it's it would be very familiar in a sense to.
There
So
are some things that we added that are different. So we have a system of advantages and disadvantages, which is also in other games it's called merits and flaws. It's something more that's not OSR. That's more recent.
Right.
But I added that because I like that. It allows you to customize a little bit more your character. But
Okay.
if you want to remove it, it doesn't affect anything else. It can be used or not used. It's either way. The combat system is pretty much compatible with the games you know, like Back Me, Rule Cyclopedia, all that. It's all the same thing. Weapons work the same way. The damage is more or less the same, and all that. Of course, because in the case of Ratchet, the leveling up is topped at level 10, maybe level 14 in some games, but most of the games is level 10. So you will never be truly an invincible character. In the
Right.
case of Red, which is this one, there are no character levels. So you will not level up, which means that your hit points will not increase and all that. So this
Oh
one is
wow.
much deadlier.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that. One of the things that I did notice when I was looking through your website and everything, one of the things I did notice was it said when your character dies, it's permanently dead.
There are no
Is that the
clerics.
same through both systems, Red and
Yeah,
the Wretched?
yeah. We never introduced clerics, so there's no resurrections.
I
We
like
have magicians, we have spells for magicians, but no resurrection spells. So if you die, tough luck, you're
Oh,
dead.
that's well, that forces you to be more strategic, and
Yeah,
I like
or
that.
several characters, and this one died, you pick up the next one. That's always
Wow,
a possibility.
I like that. I like that. I wish that's part of the problem I have with D&D is like I said earlier, uh, you lose all your hit points, you fall unconscious, and then the cleric just comes up and cures you, so then you become stable, and then 8 hours later you have all your hit points back,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it just I get it to an extent, and I know the Hasbro and they want the game to be accessible to everybody, but there are those people that have been playing the game for a long time want it to be tougher, and it's very much a product of the video game culture as well, where if you die you just start all your character gets revived and you start all over again. I like the fact that when a character dies, the character dies, and you're forced to start all over again. I
We
like
do have
that aspect.
games where there's no character death, but that's a specific thing. We have a game where we play kids. It's called The End of Innocence. It's not actually a game for kids, but it's a game for if you want to run it for your kids. You, an adult, you want to run it for the kids, you can. I wouldn't say that it's a game for kids because the rules are still OSR, so they may be a little bit complicated
Right.
for children. But they can play it because it's perfectly safe for kids. But in
Sure.
that case, the characters don't die.
Okay. Okay. That
There's
makes
another game. There's another game where the characters don't die because it's it tries to emulate some of those 80s and 90s shows like the A Team
right.
where no one dies. So that's the point. So everybody goes unconscious, they don't die. But of course, if you might go unconscious and be captured, and you are out of the game anyway.
Right.
So those are the only exceptions.
I remember every Saturday, my buddies and I would get on our bicycles and ride a couple miles to the mall. There was a gaming store called the Gamekeeper, and we would go in there and we'd all put our money together and we'd get our Dungeons and Dragons module, and we'd go home and my buddy who ran the games would read through it real quick and then we'd play it. But there were a lot of other gaming systems in there like Boot Hill, and there was
Mm.
Star Frontiers and other role playing games, and we bought some of those, but we never really got into them because we just so focused on playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I think right now is kind of a renaissance of other games beyond Dungeons and Dragons because Hasbro has had so many issues over the last few years with Dungeons and Dragons, and really I don't know if they connect with the older generation of role playing gamers. I don't
I
think
don't.
the current Dungeons and
They're
Dragons
not trying to.
connects anymore.
Actually, they are trying to move them away.
Right.
Uh, they don't want the old guys playing the game.
Right, because I think the old guys, that have been playing the game for so long are very critical of it because they've been playing it throughout the different editions, and
Yeah,
they tend to play other games as well. So when they Hasbro decides, hey, we're gonna do away with the like the half elf or the half orc or whatever, we're doing away with those for certain reasons. People, old school gamers, don't understand why. It's like, why are you doing that? That doesn't make any sense. You're caving to something else. And now, Critical Role, they came out with their game, and their, Daggerheart, and like I said, Shadow Dark, and other gaming systems. They're starting, I think, to outsell Hasbro, and Hasbro has a real problem on their hands, I think.
yeah.
And I
They are
just
probably going to sell the game.
right, and
Pretty soon.
I think I read somewhere where they're bringing in Luke Gygax, I think that's how you pronounce it, Luke Gygax, in as a consultant. So I don't know what their plans are, but
Yeah,
with I mean, I haven't spent a ton of money on D&D 5th edition. I have the core rule books. I have the new ones. I've bought and stuff on Roll20 to play online, but I haven't spent a whole lot of money buying physical items. The one thing that I don't like that seems to be the case with them and maybe with other is when you go online and you buy, say I have the digital versions of the new core rule books. If I lose my password and my information to D&D Beyond, my books are gone. I have no way to get that information back if I lose those books. I'm basically paying the same price for permission to read the book online,
yeah. I also hate that. I
right?
think you should if you pay for it, you should own it. You're not
Right,
renting; it's
right.
yours.
And same with like Roll20, and I love Roll20 because I know how to use it and I can play games online. But I'm going to spend $30 to buy, uh, uh, you know, Dungeon of the Mad Mage to play with my friends. But if I don't use Roll20 anymore, I don't have that anymore. But yet I spent the same price to use it there than I would if I walked in to Barnes and Noble bookstores would be more expensive. But if I ordered the physical book off of Amazon or Lulu in your case.
Yeah,
So I know that's a challenge for somebody designing a game. Has your system gone into like Roll20? Has it moved into like some of the virtual tabletops, or is it physical
uh,
completely?
it's only physical. I don't really use any VTT, so and I don't know how to work it, so I never tried. Some people talked about it, but it never it never went ahead. So
Right.
we are not on Roll20 or any of the other things. But what I think the problem with Hasbro is the same problem that happened with the movies and comics. They were searching for that utopian modern audience. They introduced diversity and all that, and they targeted an audience that doesn't exist. And they are trying to sell the product to people that are not interested in it. That's basically what happened. So if you look at the art for modern D&D games, it's all black lesbians and gays and gay
Right.
orcs and, and gay elves. Everything is gay. Um, it's all about feasts and markets and food. So you have adventures that take place in ancient Starbucks. Let's call it that.
Right. Right.
Medieval Starbucks. And that doesn't make sense. That's not what people want to play. And so they have problems. Of course, they are not selling as well as they used to. And who knows? I think this is not going to work. And even if they pick up new ideas, if they get different people writing for them, I don't know. I think they reached that point where there's nothing they can do, at least unless they stop for a few years and then they.
Well, I think that when it comes, like I said before, they should have never even. And people designing games in general, it's meant to be an escape. You're not meant to, go into Baldur's Gate and, those characters like the black lesbians and that type of could very well exist in D&D. There's nothing that says that it can't. But that was not anything I would have ever thought to put in like if I was homebrewing a campaign, just because it's just not, it's not in the book. There's 12 classes or whatever there is. That's kind of what I'm using, but I understand why they did it, but it's not something that me as a person who played all those years ago and got back into it. It's just not something that I would have ever done. And there's nothing against any of that. It's just not something that I would have ever done. And I think that a lot of gamers feel the same way. That's why they're kind of moving away from it, because they did it to appease a certain portion of their audience, but when they did that, it alienated a portion of their audience as well. Because there's people, it's like, look, that's all fine and dandy. It's just not for me. I don't want to deal with it. You know?
It's not just the art, it's not just the concepts, it's also the execution. The people they have there working there, some of them are not even role players.
Right.
There are people whose resume contain the cookbooks, and that's it. So
Right.
they are not. They hire them. They are the high hires, basically.
Right. Right.
Hire them not because they have been role playing for many years. No, maybe they have a YouTube channel where they do some kind of critical role style stuff with friends and whatever, and they hire people for the wrong reasons.
Right. And I
And people who are not really good at that, they cannot do anything else but whatever they. If they are cookbook authors, they will write stuff about food, and
right.
that's happening.
Well, it's to me that's the same thing as I'm not an electrician, right? So I'm not going to pretend to tell other people how to be an electrician and how they should be an electrician. I think, like you mentioned, Hasbro's problems is that they hired people that don't play the game. And of course, I mean, Hasbro's worried about the bottom line, making the dollar. They've got the microtransactions and everything like that. But they've kind of strayed away from the what made the game so good and why people wanted to play it. So I think that's why people are moving away from it to other games that were designed and written by people that actually play and have a passion for the game or role playing in general. So I think as far as like yourself and your friends writing what you guys are writing and the other systems, I think you guys you're doing a good job, and I think you stand a chance to pull people in. And how have you found the response has been to your system in the last few years?
Uh, we have varying degrees. We have a problem because by not being on drive-through,
Right.
it's hard to reach the audience. So we started pretty well, I think I can say.
Okay.
When we started that draft, we had an advantage because OSR games, as I said before, are mostly fantasy games or high adventure games, and ours weren't. So we found a niche audience of people in the OSR who wanted different kind of things, like horror, like investigative horror, 19th century games, modern games as well. So we have concentrated mostly in modern games, grindhouse style,
Right.
modern horror, and that kind of thing. So we found that audience, but we had a problem because lately the audience has not grown, and so it's always the same people. There's a point where they have purchased. Some of them have purchased everything they wanted.
Right.
Some of them are still buying stuff, but not as much as they were before, and so we need to expand the audience. That's the problem as well because we weren't only canceled by drive-through; we were canceled everywhere. We tried,
Right.
for example, last year tried doing advertising on a big channel. Um, the guy accepted. I'm not going to mention names anyway, but
Sure.
it's a big YouTuber. He accepted. There was it was just a small ad during his one of his videos. Immediately after that, people started writing comments on the video, um, saying, "Well, these guys are fascists, whatever."
Right.
and he had to apologize, all that. At least he gave me back the money, so it
Uh,
wasn't all.
See, but I will tell you that I think that as far as people calling people fascists and that whole thing, I think they're going to die on that hill. So they're going to continue to do it and do it. But I think there's fatigue from everybody else on. They're like, you're really going with that again? This is done. This is over. Like the DEI hires and stuff like that. It was pushed so hard on everybody that at this point, a lot of people just don't even want to deal with it anymore.
That's true, but they usually cave in.
Oh,
Uh, this guy immediately was apologizing for everything. I didn't know who they were, whatever, whatever.
oh,
The usual thing. And obviously, others have immediately refused to advertise any or review any of our games. We have rejections all the time. And I simply given up that I have a few, a small group of YouTubers that I send my games to be reviewed. But they are small channels,
right,
always small channels. The big channels are out of the way. Not just because of that, of course, we are not famous. We are very, very, very small publishing.
right,
So some of the guys won't pick it up because it's irrelevant, and they won't use. Um, but others, I know that it's not just that. It's also because we are cancelled, and they're not going to touch games from a cancelled publisher. They are afraid. They are still afraid.
right. So speaking of reviews, people that have purchased your game, you mentioned there's people that buy uh, multiple settings from you. So those people obviously like the product that you're putting out. What kind of positive feedback have you gotten from your games from people that have purchased?
Well, you know that people don't like to really to publish their reviews, so the feedback is usually on social media.
Right,
But we've had very. There are people that really like us, and I suppose they also like the games. At least they
right,
pretend to like the games. So they help us a little bit with that advertising, retweeting, sharing our posts, sharing stuff. Basically, I must say that the only reason I'm still doing this right now is because I know that some people really like the stuff, and because commercially we are not selling that much anymore.
right,
We had a couple of very good years, and then it went down.
right,
But I still have some kind of a mission. I'm still moved by this
right,
sense of mission. I don't want to give up.
right.
Uh, so.
I understand that. I understand that. And part of it, I'm sure, is the fact that you're just like, you know what? Screw those people. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to write what I want. Just because they prefer something doesn't mean that I have to cave in and do what they expect me to do. And I admire that from you because you shouldn't cave in. You should be able to do what you want to do. Just because your game upsets somebody and hurts their feelings doesn't mean that your game shouldn't be available for other people to enjoy.
And actually, none of our games were, except that one, which isn't really ours. We just published it,
Right.
the man game. Uh, well, I was going to say that none of ours are political, and even that one is not actually political. It's
Yeah.
considered political in the modern sense because
Right.
it was a joke. It was a joke game, but none of ours go into that.
Right.
They are just games,
Right.
normal settings to play in different styles and different genres. Uh, what they consider political was our opinions, of course.
Of
Uh,
course. And your opinions is what they
even
didn't like, so your game suffered when your game didn't reflect your
yeah,
opinions, which
yeah, the game.
you were smart enough to not put that in the game because you wanted it to appeal to everybody. But then as soon as somebody found out that, you felt a certain way, That's it.
Exactly.
But that's so prevalent in the world now, anyways. Whether it be music or a prime example, and I'm guilty of this in the sense that I I love Pink Floyd. I love David Gilmour. Roger Waters. eh, I
You
don't
can stand that.
right. I don't like Roger Waters' solo music to begin with. Like I love what he did with Pink Floyd, even though he wrote The Wall and he wrote Animals and everything. He had such a big part of that, but I don't think they would have been the same without David Gilmour and you know Nick Mason and Richard Wright being putting their pieces into it. However limited it was at that point. I don't like Roger Waters' solo music. Never bought it. Don't really care for it at all. It just doesn't appeal to me. I definitely don't like some of the stuff well, I don't like a lot of the stuff that he says just because it doesn't make sense to me. He's just a very, very, very uh, opinionated person, right?
Yeah, too much.
So I don't like his stuff. I don't care for him, right? So I get how that works. Another one would be the band Green Day here in the United States. I like Green Day's music, their earlier stuff. Haven't listened to any of their stuff in years, but I don't care for their view or the singer's views on things. If I'm going to pay $300 to go see a concert, I don't want to hear it. I just want to go enjoy the music, and that's it. And
Technical message. Yeah.
right. And your game, regardless of your views, didn't reflect any of those views. You wrote it as a game for everyone to enjoy, but yet people put your views and push the game down because of your views or the views of your friends, and that's not right.
Yeah, and even in our YouTube channel or even in my social media presence, I don't usually talk about politics.
Right.
I do make fun about the woke people, and that's what got them because they are woke as well.
Right.
So they felt offended, and I'm in drive-through right now. They are woke as well, so they
Right.
probably they took it personally. I think
Right.
uh, the jokes we make about the blue-haired freaks and all that, they took it personally.
Oh, that's
Obviously, we are fortunate we're not American, so even we are not interested in American politics.
right.
Uh, it's
Right.
not really about the politics. It's not because we voted for Trump, because obviously we couldn't.
Right.
I would if I was there, but I'm not. So
Well, I'm here and I did, and I'm a musician. So when COVID hit, being in a band with four other guys in the band, you send the most offensive stuff to each other because you're just a bunch of dudes hanging out, right? And you send stuff to each other, and I sent something, and unfortunately, one of the other members didn't like it, so therefore, I'm not. It costs me money because he wouldn't play gigs with me, so it cost me gigs. Neither here nor there because of politics at the
mm.
time, right? So I get how that works. It's not right, makes no sense. And a majority of the time when I see somebody that gets so up in arms over something, I don't get angry about it because they believe something that I don't, even though I disagree with it. I don't get angry about it. I just kind of internally laugh and go, okay, that's fine. They believe something different. But if I like their music, I'm still going to buy their music because I enjoy the music. Or, I enjoy playing D&D, even though it's gone a little woke. I still enjoy playing the game. So to me, it's very stupid, makes no sense for somebody to cancel something because they don't like it.
Well, personally, I cannot spend my money on anything that has been wokeified. I really
Right.
can't.
I understand. I understand.
Since I started hearing all of those actors' opinions, I cannot distance the people from their opinions.
Right.
I think that's why in the old days actors would rarely give interviews, and they would never talk about those subjects. They
Right.
are they are artists. They should be doing their thing and not trying to convince people that they are. And it's not just saying that I like this. It's saying if you don't agree exactly with what I say, you are a very bad person. You are a
Right.
monster. You
Right.
are that's ridiculous. You are insulting people. If you
Right.
want to say, okay, these are my beliefs, you can have yours. I don't care, but these are my beliefs. That's one thing. I can respect that.
Right.
I might not agree, but I can respect that. If you
Right.
are going to offend people, no, then you lost me immediately. I don't care. I will never see a movie that you made. I'll never listen to anything. Well, at least
Right.
maybe on the radio, but I will not buy it.
Right. And you know what that's called? That's called being an adult.
Yeah,
That's called going, okay, it's my choice to not, listen to your music. And it's my choice to go, okay, you believe something different to me than I do, but it doesn't affect my day-to-day life. So I don't like the fact when things get canceled. And again, I apologize that, somebody got offended by something that you produced, that it was just meant for fun. And it was meant to be something that's a game system to take people away from things for people that don't want to be subjected to, the wokeism that is prevalent in uh, Dungeons and Dragons and a few other gaming
well,
systems.
in general, it's not just that. There are much worse than that, actually.
Right.
So drive-through has a problem with anything that is. So, for example, recently there was a guy that tried to put a card game on drive-through called. It's a fun game as well, of course. Called Nabbing Nicholas. It was about Nicolas Maduro. So you play the game to capture the game was supposed to be you are the team that is going to capture Maduro, and
Right.
they refused to publish it. I published it on my because it was free. I published on my site,
Right.
so you could grab it there. So they will not publish this, but they do publish things that are very, very, very much left wing, and some
Right.
of them are quite. I'm not going to use their word. No, I'm going to use their word. Problematic.
Right.
So,
Right.
for example, there's a game on drive-through. I don't remember the name right now, but you play a team of guys that go back in time to kill people, to murder people, like a mission to change history.
Wow.
Let's say you're going to murder Adolf Hitler or something like that. But on the cover, there's Ronald Reagan. Like
Wow.
that's the guy was alive a few years ago, and he was not a dictator. He was a president.
Right.
That's it. But
Who
they
just
allowed it there.
who just happened to be a Republican, by the way.
Yeah, that was
Right.
his problem. Yeah, yeah. So that
Right.
you there are other guys on the cover that are historical figures. I don't remember. I don't know. It wasn't Mao. It wasn't Stalin. I'm
Right.
sure those weren't there.
Right.
Uh,
So
but
the truly bad people were omitted from it.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
guess there was. I'm sure Hitler was there, of course.
Right.
that,
Wow.
that's what everybody agrees on. But then they picked the
Right. Wow.
or either it's very late
Right.
historical figures like from the medieval times, but the
Right.
recent ones were all right wingers and
Yeah. See, so it's a game. It's meant to be fun. Do not. You shouldn't project your. Uh, I mean, look. It's your game. You have a right to design the game however you want. If you choose to put politics and wokeism into it, you have every right to, right? You're just going to alienate people, and some people aren't going to buy it, which is fine. I'm not going to go on Drive Through RPG and give that game a bad review just because I don't like what's on the cover. I'm just not going to buy the game.
exactly.
Every game within reason, deserves to be on there. And from what I can tell and what I can read from your website and everything, there was nothing outside of the ordinary of that your game projected that would cause somebody to be upset. I mean,
No,
it was
no, no,
another game. You,
definitely not. Especially if you didn't buy it.
right,
Just by looking at the cover, it wouldn't offend you.
right,
There's nothing, let's say, graphic about it.
right. And that's the thing that the person or people that complained about your game probably didn't buy it.
Yes, I think they didn't. I believe that you can report titles even without being a buyer, which is a problem as well.
Right,
Uh, if you are going to complain about something just because you looked at it and you don't like the title or you don't like the
right,
blurb, it's
right.
a bit silly. But I think they accept reports from people that didn't buy the games.
Okay. Well, now that you're self-publishing in a sense, and your game's available on Amazon and Lulu. Now, where does the game go now? What does the future hold for the game and for you as a game designer and a player?
Okay, at this point, what I've been doing mostly, it has been to pick up some of the things that I have released already and improving it a little bit, especially because we are not selling that much. So it would be probably a bad idea to release new titles, and we have a bunch of titles. Another reason that we got also canceled was because we used AI generated images in some of our products for a while. And that obviously some people also complained about that, and we had problems also with reviews. People wouldn't like to review titles that included AI generated images and all that. So it was another reason. And now I've been also replacing that with human made art, stock art, and commissioned art. So I've used this time to do that. We have been re-releasing some of the titles that we had published with AI generated images. Now, of course, paying for commissioned art is expensive. It takes time. If you are on a tight schedule, it's also complicated because the artist has to make his art, and that takes time. So that's why going back and picking up things that were already published, and now I take some more time and start replacing the art, and then I will re-release the books. We've been doing it with a bunch of books already, um, and now I have to start thinking about how to reach new audiences. Basically, that's the problem right now.
Right, right,
Trying to make people aware that we are here. And we have a backlog that is extensive. We have hundreds of stuff already. Some of the things are small, but like adventure scenarios. But still, the first 3 years were very intensive. I didn't take holidays. I worked on weekends. My wife was writing as well, some stuff.
okay,
Other people were writing, friends who were also customers, but they were interested in our stuff, and they were playing a game, and they decided, okay, I'm going to write an adventure for that, or I'm going to write some fluff for your setting. So I used all that.
right,
I still publish things from other people, or maybe I will, because lately I haven't done it, but I have a few friends that are interested in writing scenarios. Usually it's scenarios because it's what you, if you are not really doing this professionally, it's what you play the scenario with your friends, and now you want to publish it. You send it to me, and I will
right,
do the layout, release it, and all that. So that's really basically. I'm re-releasing stuff. I'm taking some time to think about stuff, and then I will get get some new things out there as well. We have plans for new things.
So, are there videos on? You mentioned YouTube. Are there videos on YouTube of actual gameplay?
We do, yeah, yeah. We
Okay.
also we always well, not always, but most of our sessions are recorded. I don't think it's interesting to watch. That's at least not for me. I don't like watching other people playing role playing games. But if you want to, they are there. And also overviews of our own games, reviews of other people's games. I think the most interesting thing on our channel actually is the interviews to other people. But
Right.
that's my
Right. Well, I'm glad that you donated your time to come on here and talk to me because it's been a very interesting conversation about the general state of role playing games and how politics and worldviews affect the genre in real time. And it's been an interesting conversation to say the least because but like I said, these games are meant to be an escape, and no one should get uh, canceled for their game just because somebody else doesn't like it. That makes no sense. But that's unfortunately the state of the world over the last few years. I think that's starting to change now.
yes, I think. But we covered only the tip of the iceberg. It's
Right,
much worse.
right, right,
Much worse than that. And yeah, I think yeah, things are changing, but I think in the role playing hobby it will take some time.
right.
Um, it's not immediate. The changes will take some time to be felt.
Okay, so um, as far as some of the bigger players in the role playing game universe, have you received any messages of support, like quiet support from them? Like, hey, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. I really enjoyed the game, but they're not saying it publicly, but are saying it to you personally?
Well, that depends on who you consider big, because I don't have really connections with any of the famous people in the hobby, I guess.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
not really famous. Famous in the OSR, yes, but they are very vocal about their opinions. The ones I know, they are very vocal. They didn't have to say it privately.
Right. And I saw a meme the other day. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was comparing the older players to the new players, and the very much the older players. There's a joke like here in the United States, and it may be worldwide, but just kind of interpreted differently. Where it's like when you get older and you go stand on your front porch and yell at the kids, "Hey, you kids, get off my lawn!" And I
True.
think a
Yeah.
lot of the older players are very vocal about it because
But they
they
don't care anymore.
right,
Obviously, even among the old guys, there are some that went along with the current thing.
right,
There are a few. There are a few. Yeah. Even in D&D, some of the older people that were connected to the game, some of them were pretty woke
right,
in the moment. Some of them are not. Some of them are already dead, so that they have no opinion. But yeah, there are a few guys from the old days that are pretty much into it, or at least they pretend to be,
right,
uh, because it's better to be accepted by the cool kids
right,
than to
right.
say your own opinion.
Okay. So you've got your games and your settings and you're publishing them and you're kind of going back and reworking and updating them. Okay. So that's good because I would hate to see you stop. And I know that there's so many factors, time and money and everything. I would hate to see you stop. And I'm hoping that by doing this interview, you can this is your ability to kind of reach to some of the people in my audience that may have been thinking about playing role playing games, because I don't just do role playing games. This podcast covers everything I'm into. So
Yeah, I've
it's
uh, I've looked at your channel and
oh,
what
okay,
you do
right.
about. I didn't see any video about role playing games or games. Actually,
There was I did one about a couple of years ago with a gentleman who's very much his thing was that he likes the Beck Me version of Dungeons and Dragons. So he came on to discuss why he thinks it's better than every other version out there. But I haven't done a lot on role
do you
playing
remember?
games. I want to
Do you
do
remember
more.
the guy's name? Maybe I know him.
His name's what was it? Richard. Oh gosh, I remember. I forget his last name, but his first name was Richard Hanna. Richard Hanna. He's from Scotland, I believe, Scotland or Ireland.
Okay, I don't think. I don't
And
think.
I interview him, and it's a very nice guy. And he just so happens, and I don't hold this against him because I thought he was a great guy. He just so happens to uh, uh, dress up, so to speak, if you know what I mean. He happens,
Oh, okay.
right. I don't care. He was a great guy. I don't have a problem with it. He was a great guy, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't care. Rich, if you ever see this dude, you were great. I would interview you again. I don't have a problem with it. But, you know, like you said, that there's people that do have a problem with it, and there's people on that side that have a problem with somebody calling it out. So either way, I appreciate the fact that you donated your time on this. I'm going to put this episode up later on this afternoon. I'll include links and everything, and hopefully we can get some books sold. Hopefully, I think people will appreciate the fact that you've expressed the trials and tribulations of designing and putting out your own system, and some of the struggles that other systems may be up against but aren't saying anything about when it comes to uh, I dare to say subject matter, but when it comes to the views, your views on certain things and how it affects your the sale of your gaming systems.
Yeah, it's still it's that's is obviously still a problem. If
Right,
you speak your mind, you will have problems. And it's not just in role playing games. It's in everything.
right, right. So
Writers, I've seen writers saying the same. Writers of fiction.
right.
Uh,
Well, I have a friend who's he's a musician as well, and he works for a pretty major tier 1 band. So he travels all over the world as part of the crew, and he'll be the first one to tell me, "Dude, I agree with your views and what you're saying, but I can't say anything because it'll affect my livelihood." And I think there's a lot of people, a lot more people than you would think that feel the same way, but just choose not to say anything.
they just shut up or they speak privately, never publicly.
Right. So, sir, I appreciate you. I really do, for coming on. Um, is there? Can you go ahead and plug your website and tell everybody where your game and your systems are available?
Okay, yeah. So the website is the Red Room on reverse. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because it's unpronounceable. No, it's Red, but the Red Room on reverse. Why? Okay, because the Red Room is a Twin Peaks reference. So I've decided to do it on to write on reverse because the dwarf in the Red Rooms talked on reverse. In this website, which used to be a store but it's not a store anymore, you'll still find the shop, and the shop now has links to other places, to the other places where you can find. So you have categories where you can find your all of our books, and then below you will find connections to Lulu, to itch.io, where it's only digital, and to Amazon, where we are only selling in paper. because ebooks don't work for role playing games.
Right.
Yeah, it screws up all things. The images and the tables and all that. It's impossible. It's good for books, for actual novels and all that, but not for role playing games. And yeah, that's it. We covered all genres except high fantasy and superheroes, like Marvel superheroes. We have superheroes, but like pulp style superheroes, not ultra powerful
Right.
Marvel style heroes. Everything else we have covered.
Okay. Perfect. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to include a link, which I did in the description. I included a link to the website so everybody can see what it was all about. And then I will, when I repost this up later on this afternoon, I'll put links to the Lulu page and links to Amazon so everybody can go directly there and purchase the books if they're so inclined. Would request that everybody show your full support here for Miguel. I mean, it's the right thing to do. He's putting out quality content. He's put a lot of time into this, and let's, as a community of role players, if you're seeing this, let's support him. It doesn't just have to be the big giant Hasbro and the Dagger Hearts and the Shadow Darks. Let's support some game designers that just don't have the reach as some of these others. They don't have the resources. Let's support it. So, my friend, I know that it's was it like 7:30 your time, 9:30 your time?
7:30 now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, sir, I hope that you have a great rest of your evening. And I really appreciate you coming on. And I will send you links to this once I get everything up for you to enjoy and to share if you so choose to do so.
Thanks for the invitation. It was a great chat.
Yes, sir. It definitely was. And let's do it again in the future.
Sure.
All right. Have a great day, sir. Take care.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
So there we go. That was Miguel from the Red Room and the Wretched Role-Playing Games. I thought it was a great interview. I thought that we had a lot in common, and I know obviously the love of role-playing games, but also views in general, just about how some things were pushed so hard on people. It just made it so ridiculous. And, people can suffer for it. So please, if you guys wouldn't mind, you can find his stuff on Lulu. You can find it on Amazon. I will put up the links once I publish this. You can find this show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the video version on YouTube and Rumble. You can also support him on X. You can support me on X, and everywhere, every social media platform is just Earmob Podcast. So don't forget to support me by going there, clicking that subscribe or that follow button. If you enjoy this podcast, I will be doing more in the future, obviously, but I want to say thank you for taking the time to be here. And thank you for those of you who watched. And thank you for those of you who are going to watch it in the future or listen to it in the future. Please leave a review. It helps. Whether you love it or hate it, it doesn't matter. I want to know. So thank you again. I'm going to play this little bit of outro music, and then that's it for this episode. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy.